In a previous video, we took a look at a commercial ad run by a super PAC that was attacking the law firm Jones Day. Jones Day is a huge international law firm, probably one of the largest in the country and one of the most well respected. Pretty much any attorney is going to know that name when they hear it. So, in that last video, a couple of lawyers got together, formed a super PAC, and are making commercials attacking Jones Day because Jones Day was representing Donald Trump and the Trump campaign in Pennsylvania and his challenge of the election in certain vote counting. Now, I don't know the details of the lawsuit itself. If people are interested in that, let me know. Maybe I can do a video on it. But what I am interested in is this war between lawyers, right? This law firm attacked Jones Day in this commercial, and what often happens in warfare, even if it's civil warfare like this kind, is you can have battles between two entities, but also battles within the entity itself. And today I am going to talk about Revolt within Jones Day. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Joe Pometto, Joe the Lawyer. If you like my content, like, subscribe, comment, and share. It's a free way to support the show. This show will always remain free. Also, if you want me to cover a specific topic or want me to go in a certain direction, please let me know in the comments. I'm looking for direction from my viewers so I can make the show better, cover stuff that you guys want to hear. So, remember, Jones Day is facing a whole bunch of criticism for representing Donald Trump and the Trump campaign in the election lawsuit against Pennsylvania. Well, this juicy article came out yesterday on the popular lawyer blog called Above the Law. It's entitled, "Oh, to be a fly on the wall at Jones Day as dissension at the firm grows. Associate attorney mouths off with a reply all email." I'm going to read a little bit of the article. "The PR machine at Jones Day must really be in overdrive. Between the New York Times article, which I didn't know about, the attack ads, plus the promise of more, and ones that go after the firm's client base, very interesting, picketing and planned boycotts, well, they have a lot to deal with, but so far, publicly at least, the firm has been resolute in defending their representation. But it should be obvious, not everyone at the firm is pleased about it." And what they are talking about is Jones Day's representation in the election lawsuits in Pennsylvania. Today, Kevin Orr, partner in charge at Jones Day's DC office, hosted an associate call to discuss the recent controversy. But apparently, after giving his spiel, the call was ended without letting associates register their opinions, which ticked some folks off. Parker Ryder Longmaid, an associate on the issue and appeals practice and a former law clerk to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, was apparently deeply disappointed at Orr's decision not to answer questions and let fly an email to the entire DC office registering that displeasure. Now I'm going to read this email to you. Okay, it's kind of it's interesting. "Kevin," this is the associate writing to the partner, "Kevin, my understanding was that we would have an opportunity at today's meeting to ask questions or say something. Robin and I had prepared to say something. So now I will share it with all of you this way. We dissent. I don't believe the question here is whether the Pennsylvania election cert petition has legal merit or is instead frivolous. I believe the question is whether this firm should lend its prestige and credibility to the project of an administration bent on undermining our democracy and our rule of law. Make no mistake, from the outset, this petition was designed to suppress the vote to ensure that fewer of our fellow Americans' voices would be heard in the midst of a global pandemic like we have never seen in our lifetimes. And now it is being weaponized to threaten our generations-long tradition in this country of a peaceful and democratic transition of power. I believe that our society should strive to become a more just and inclusive representative democracy. In this petition and the project to which it lends our collective prestige stands firmly in the way of that ideal. We as lawyers choose our clients and our cases. our causes, excuse me. We choose what we stand for, and this project I submit should not be one of those things. As an American, I am today deeply disappointed in this firm. I do not accept as simply unpopular what is profoundly undemocratic. We are better than this, and yesterday should be no excuse for tomorrow. We dissent. So I've got a couple of opinions about this, but let me grab let's do a quick look at that. Look at that. First the coffee, then the justice. A quick sip of coffee before I address this. So I disagree with the esteemed associate attorney who I imagine is very well accomplished, having been a law clerk at the Supreme Court, and he probably did a lot better, went to a lot more prestigious law school than I did. But I disagree with him that the issue is not about whether or not the lawsuit is frivolous. He's concerned with the law firm lending its prestige to a cause that he believes is, I don't know, undermining democracy. Okay, so you really have to pull this apart piece by piece. Number one, are the lawsuits brought by President Trump and the Trump campaign actually undermining democracy? Well, you can't, it's hard to just flat out say that, and it's hard for me to speak on this without exactly knowing what the lawsuit is. But regardless, I think it ultimately does go as to whether or not the lawsuit is frivolous, okay? If they bring the lawsuit and it's frivolous, all right, then it will be dismissed and it will have no role in undermining democracy, right? Right? I mean, if you bring a lawsuit, you bring something into the court and the court just outright dismisses it early on, all right, it did nothing, it had no effect, it didn't undermine the democracy. However, if the case goes forward, if the case moves forward within the structure of the courts, that means that a judge, some independent body or person decided that maybe there is something there that we need to look at, and then it would move forward through the system. So this associate attorney is making the claim that just representing the person or the individual or the campaign on this issue itself undermines democracy because they're lending prestige. I don't think you can make that argument without knowing exactly what the issue is. And even if the issue does not have that much merit to it, okay, and I talked about frivolous lawsuits in a previous video, even if it doesn't have that much merit to it, all right, you bring it into court, a judge looks at it, boom, a judge throws it out. That already happened with a bunch of these election lawsuits, all right? But what I don't like about this is that he is stating, this associate attorney is basically stating that that if you represent certain people, you are inevitably associated with that person or with that person's cause. Okay, he's right to a certain degree that attorneys, look, if a client comes to me and I don't like what they did or they didn't do, all right, I don't have to take the case. There is a degree of choice there. However, I think a more fundamental right that is actually more fundamental to democracy itself, this is more fundamental than the argument that he's making, is that everyone has a right to legal representation. Now, it's true, an attorney, and we can pick apart, if an attorney gets a case that is frivolous, the attorney should not move forward with a case that is frivolous. That's true. But different lawyers will defer on what's a frivolous lawsuit and what's not. And it's not always that easy to determine what a frivolous lawsuit is. And sometimes a lawyer can look at a case and it's somewhere in the middle, and they may make the decision to say, hey, there may be something here. I'm going to go ahead and file it. Boom. I'm going to put it on the track. Like, let's test it. Let's test it, right? Let's put it out there. It's close enough. On a close call, okay, a lawyer can move in the direction of, all right, let's file this case. Let's see what happens. Boom. The case gets knocked out. The judge throws it out early on in early pleadings. Okay, and then it is what it is. And then, of course, hindsight is 20/20. The lawyer can look back and say, oh, that was frivolous. But I'm telling you, maybe 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 of those cases are going to go forward, maybe have a huge impact, maybe even change the law and do more to create justice. Okay, then the filing of a frivolous lawsuit would take away from justice. So I believe that the lawyer who wrote this, I think that his concerns are misplaced. Okay, this law firm gets all right. The Trump campaign comes to them and says, "Hey, let's file this lawsuit." They may have looked at this and said, "Maybe there is something here." Obviously, it's unpopular. Okay, it's unpopular. But you know what? Lawyers aren't supposed to always do the popular thing. Lawyers aren't. Nobody should, right? You should take your own independent judgment on an issue, and then you decide what you're going to do with it based on your expertise, your knowledge. Maybe consult with a few people, and then make the decision. It shouldn't be about what's popular or unpopular. All right. I think this guy, he looks to be a very talented writer. Obviously, has a great resume. I just think his concerns are a bit misplaced. Um, there's a greater concern to me if one side of the political spectrum starts scaring attorneys out of representing another side, or one side uses their power and pressure, okay, and media pressure to intimidate another side into perhaps moving forward with an issue that is perfectly valid. All right. So I do think it comes down to whether or not the case is frivolous. And he addressed that in his statement as though he knew that perhaps that's ultimately what it goes to. All right. He doesn't like, look, if him at his own personal scruples, he wouldn't want to move forward with the case, fine. But you work at a law firm at any given time, a firm like that, he's concerned about this issue. All right. Jones Day probably represents companies that pollute, okay, companies that defy regulations, companies that break the law in 100 different other ways, or try to shape policy in order to feed their corporate needs and greed. Okay, and this is the issue that he's taking a stand on. Okay, a suit where a presidential campaign wants to simply file a lawsuit challenging an election that happened in a way that has never happened before in this country. I think his concerns are misplaced. I do. If you want to go to a law firm like Jones Day and run through the tens of thousands of lawsuits that they have, and let me know if you feel good about each and every one of them. Okay, because he's in here as an issues and appeals attorney. I'm sure that he is representing some characters in these lawsuits that may not be that popular, right? I'm a criminal defense attorney. Again, I represent people who have committed terrible, terrible crimes. But I believe that everybody has a right to representation. And yes, it is about whether the lawsuit is frivolous. And if there's a gray area, I don't have a problem with attorneys taking it into court and testing it and seeing what happens. Because again, whether a lawsuit is frivolous, hindsight is 2020. Hindsight is 2020. When it's there, I got an envelope here. When the case is sitting there in front of you, okay, it's not easy to say whether or not it's frivolous or not. Okay, and sometimes you have to file it to see, and if it is frivolous, the judge will throw it out. As simple as that. So I understand this guy wanting, read the whole article. I understand he maybe wanted to ask some questions and being upset about that, but then he went ahead and sent this email to the entire law firm and basically says, I don't like that we're representing Donald Trump. Okay, and again, I think everybody has the right to legal representation. Everybody should be able to go and find an attorney. And in certain situations, some much more horrible than what we're dealing with here, such as an individual goes out and murders police officers, that case will go to the public defender, and the public defender will represent him. Okay, everybody deserves a degree of representation. You're right, attorneys get to choose their causes, but when you work at a law firm and you're not the partner, you're not the one making that choice. All right. If you have your own law firm, maybe you can make that choice then. So I just want to drop my 2 cents on that article. Thank you very much for tuning in, Joe Pometto, Joe the Lawyer. Let me know what you want me to talk about. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I do personal injury, civil litigation, family law, whatever it is. I was also a political science major, so I like to talk about politics. Served in the military 4 years, so I like talking about politics, news, history, law. Let me know what you want me to chat about. Thank you.